Hey everyone, it's Rose, and I'm going to stick a video of Sharon at the end of this clip, or at the end of the video, so that y'all get your daily dose of share. But today I wanted to film a video talking about Amberlynn Reid and how she recently fell. I wanted to get this video out sooner rather than later so that it didn't become an irrelevant topic. So let's get into the video. Okay, so in the video clip where she talks about how she fell going up the stairs, she mentioned that she had actually injured her leg, like scraped her shin. And I wanted to talk a little bit about that because it really stuck out to me as something kind of important because she's already gotten an infection in her belly button, which a lot of us are assuming is from poor hygiene. She also, you see all the scars on her, like arms and stuff from cat scratches. She's proven that it takes her a long time to heal. So if she really did injure or scrape her leg and she isn't cleaning it appropriately and she takes a long time to heal, the chances of that getting infected are higher for her. So that's a little bit of a concern. She also mentioned that she landed on her ribs. And if someone falls and breaks their ribs, that leads to a lot of problems. The muscles that are attached to your rib cage are the muscles that help control your breathing, help move your rib cage in and out as you breathe. So it hurts to breathe. It really hurts to take a deep breath. A lot of times people who have rib fractures, we give them a pillow to brace themselves when they sneeze or when they cough. So and then on top of that, the muscles of your core are attached to your ribs, and you're using your core for every movement you do, sitting up, getting in and out of bed, walking. So every movement that you do if you have a rib fracture is extremely painful and extremely hard. Now, I don't think that she fractured her ribs because I don't think she would have been talking to us and holding a camera up after she fell, but it is something that I wanted to point out. How did she get up? This was a question that I got on Twitter from Mary. She was just wondering how someone who weighs as much as Amberlynn would be able to get herself up by herself after falling. So my guess, what she said was that she tripped on the last stair as she was trying to go up them. She fell face forward from the sounds of it. So my guess is she was able to roll herself over onto her back and then sit up and then kind of scoot on her bum over to the steps and then put her legs down on the steps to kind of have something to push herself up with. That would be my guess as to how she would have been able to do it by herself without getting help from anybody. What I wanted to talk about in this video is what can happen if a person falls. Now, obviously, a lot of you are going to be like, well, you're going to break a bone. That's like worst case scenario when someone falls. Break your leg, break your hip, break your pelvis. Those are all detrimental things that can happen when you fall. And falls are the leading cause of death from injury among people 65 and older. Now, I know that Amberlynn is not anywhere close to 65, but when you really sit down and think about it, Amberlynn leads the life of an elderly person. She's pretty much stuck to the confines of her house. If she leaves the house, she has to sit a majority of the time. If she's in a store, she's using a scooter to get around because she can't walk for a long period of time. She can't do much around the house because she can't stand for a long period of time. So when I sit down and think about it, she really is living the life of an elderly person, unfortunately. And I know that Alan from Every Damn Day Fitness says, for an obese person, if you fall, you're done. And it's so true. Falls can lead to mortality, to death. So it's going to be extremely detrimental to Amberlynn if she falls and injures herself in some way. Approximately 9,500 deaths in older Americans are associated with falls each year. More than half of all fatal falls involve people 75 years or older. And among people 65 to 69, 1 out of every 200 falls results in a hip fracture. And the reason that I wanted to bring this up as far as the hip fracture is concerned is because it's reported that the 1-year mortality rate after sustaining a hip fracture is between 14 to 58%. So what that means is that if someone falls and fractures their hip, 14 to 58% of those people are dead within the year after they broke their hip. So the first year after a hip fracture is critical because it's important that you're up and moving. As much as it hurts, the more you're up and moving, the less likely you are to pass away after sustaining a hip fracture. If you fall and you break a bone and it isn't fixed by a hip replacement, a lot of the time someone is going to be classified as non-weight bearing, which means that you can't put weight down through that leg. So the way that it's determined if you're going to get a hip replacement if you fall and break your hip, or if you're going to have some kind of surgery to fix your broken bone, is determined by the orthopedic surgeon. They come in, they look at you, they look at your x-rays, and they determine if you're appropriate for a surgery. So if you fall and break your hip, one option is to get a hip replacement. If you fall and break like your femur or your tibia or your fibula, an option is called an ORIF, which stands for open reduction internal fixation, which is, putting pins or screws in or wire or plates to kind of reconnect the bone and fix it, get it back to the way that it's supposed to be. After a hip replacement surgery, most patients are considered weight bearing as tolerated, which means that you're allowed to put as much weight down through that leg as you can tolerate when you're up walking on that leg. As far as an ORIF is concerned, some of them are weight bearing as tolerated, but a lot of the times it's toe touch weight bearing, which means you can put your toe down on the ground, but you can't put weight through that leg. Another option would be 50% weight bearing or some kind of percentage of weight bearing, which means you're allowed to put that percentage of your body weight down through that leg, which gets really difficult to judge, especially if it's like 30%. Well, how are you supposed to judge what 30% of your weight is on a leg? So that's hard for people. But a lot of the times, especially if the fracture is really bad, you're non-weight bearing, which means no weight down through that leg at all. So when you get up and walk on it, all of the weight has to go on your good leg or the leg that you haven't injured, and your arms either on a walker or crutches. Another thing is if it's a broken bone that they don't fix by surgery and they just put a cast on it, 9 times out of 10, you're non-weight bearing, which means you're not putting weight down through it. So if you're unable to maintain like non-weight bearing, you're pretty much stuck in a wheelchair, a chair, or your bed. So let's think about Amber. If she fell and broke her leg or something and was non-weight bearing, the chances of her being able to support her weight and stay balanced on one leg and 2 arms at her weight is very unlikely. Her mobility is already compromised. Her balance is already compromised with all the weight that she has to carry on her body. So I would be shocked if she would be able to keep all of her weight off one leg and get from point A to point B. So what that leads to is someone basically becoming immobile and laying in bed all day long. And so that can be extremely detrimental and lead to a ton of issues, especially in someone whose health is already compromised. So what issues can happen if someone is immobile and stuck in bed for a long period of time? It can lead to pneumonia. It can lead to blood clots. It can lead to infections. It can lead to bed sores from not moving. It can lead to weakness. There's a study that found that you can lose 1% of lean muscle mass each day you spend in bed. So if you spend 3 to 5 weeks in bed, that can lead to a 50% decrease in your muscle strength. So, and that's for people at any age. If I got sick or for whatever reason couldn't move and was stuck in bed for 3 to 5 weeks, I would be 50% weaker than I am right now. My strength would be at 50% to what it is today. So imagine somebody like Amber who already is weak. I mean, her body is strong, but in general, her mobility is compromised and she's, functionally weak. Functionally meaning getting in and out of bed, getting on and off a toilet, getting in and out of the shower. So functionally, she is weak. So imagine someone in her health being stuck in a bed for 3 to 5 weeks. And something else I wanted to point out is if you are non-weight bearing, a lot of the times that is until the bone heals. And for normal people, or an average of what I found, is that it takes 6 to 8 weeks after you fracture a bone before an orthopedic will clear you to walk normal, take the cast off, etc. Like I've already mentioned earlier in this video, Amber's takes longer to heal from what we've been able to see. So my guess is at the 8-week mark, when she would go in and get the x-ray of her leg or whatever it is that she broke, they'd be like, oh, but still not healed. So she would continue to be non-weight bearing even after that 8-week mark. So she would be stuck laying around and immobile for 8 weeks or longer. So she's getting weaker and weaker and weaker. And I've worked with patients who have been in bed for 5 days and haven't gotten out. And when I get up and walk them or get them out of bed, they're like, oh my gosh, I didn't realize I could get this weak this fast. And, you know, we all know the saying, if you don't use it, you lose it. And it's unfortunately extremely true as far as your muscle strength is concerned. If you're not at least every day getting out of bed and walking around a little bit, there's going to come a day when you go to get out of bed and you're not going to be able to do it on your own. And that's what I think would happen to Amber Lynn. If she fell and broke something and was non-weight bearing for 8 weeks or longer, she would probably find at the end of that 8 weeks that she couldn't get out of bed and do things on her own like she can right now. I also wanted to kind of touch on this whole bedbound thing. I was having a conversation with someone about this the other day, and they were like, well, do you consider her bedbound? I do not. There are two different classifications of bedboundness. There's housebound and there's bedbound. And what I would consider Amber Lynn is housebound. She, for the majority, is kind of stuck in her house. That's the most, activity she's getting is going to be in her house. She can't really leave her house. If she does leave her house, she's kind of stuck to riding in a scooter because she can't walk very far. She can't stand for a long time. She is getting better, as we've seen in these last few videos, that she's out, walking in the mall and trying to do it on her own, which is great. So she may be headed out of the housebound phase, but I won't consider Amber Lynn bedbound or anybody. When someone is bedbound, they are stuck in their bed. They can't get out. They're rolling, side to side to get a bedpan underneath them to be able to go to the bathroom. They're bathing in the bed, like getting a sponge bath in the bed. They are physically unable to get out of the bed, and they require a lot of assistance, sometimes mechanical lifts, to get them out of the bed. That is what I would consider a bedbound person, and Amber Lynn is not there. So how can we prevent falls? So in the video where Amber Lynn showed us her practicing the stairs, I had mentioned, that she really needed a handrail on those steps to make them safer for her to do. So adding handrails where you're able to, one is great, but if you can get two so you can reach them both at the same time as you're walking up and down steps, that's the ideal scenario. You're able to hold onto two handrails to get up and down the steps. Another thing is moving slowly and with purpose. Amber Lynn mentioned in the video that she was in a hurry to get in the house because there were people walking by and she didn't want Twinkie barking at them, which so can relate because Cher does that to anybody walking by the house. Anybody she doesn't know, she's barking at them. So I get it, but it's really important for someone who already has balance issues, for an older person, for somebody in Amber Lynn's state of health, to move slowly and pay attention, because if you fall and break something, you're done. So my recommendation to her would have been to pay attention to the stairs, make sure she's clearing the step each foot over foot, and just slow down. Even just, I tell patients all the time, slow is safe. I would rather you take longer to get somewhere and actually arrive at your destination than be in a hurry to get somewhere, fall, and not get there at all and end up in the hospital. Another thing I wanted to mention is use the right equipment. A lot of the elderly population are too proud to use walkers, canes, etc. They don't want to they're like, those are for old people. But it's important, if you're struggling with balance, if you're struggling with, falls frequently, you need to be using a walker or a cane to get from point A to point B. It's going to help you with your balance. It's going to help you get somewhere safe. So as much as people don't like to use them, you know, walkers and canes are really important, and they help keep you safe and they help get you where you need to go. Now, I know that Amber Lynn is probably not going to be able to use an assistive device like a cane or a walker because she's not going to find one that's going to support someone that's 560 pounds. What I would recommend, she's smart in that she uses a scooter. She's not, you know, putting herself at risk by getting halfway down an aisle in a store and being in too much back pain and not able to breathe and then fall, and then, you know, what happens from there. But what I would recommend for her is to get one of the wheelchairs that they have that isn't motorized, one that has to be pushed, and kind of use that as a walker. Push it in front of you, you know, you're pushing the wheelchair down the aisle. So you can use it as a walker, use it to support yourself so that it's a little bit easier on you. And then when you get tired and you need to sit, you have a seat with you. You brought it with you. And I don't understand why. You can get these things called transport wheelchairs. They fold up, they fit into your car, they're pretty lightweight. Although maybe maybe they don't make ones that would support her weight. But either way, if they could find one that would support her weight, they could keep that in their car and she could push it around the mall and use it as a walker until she needs to sit. Some other things to help prevent falls. Make sure that your house is set up as safely as it possibly can be. Don't have throw rugs around. A lot of patients, you know, trip over throw rugs. And so a lot of the times at the hospitals will recommend getting rid of all of your throw rugs. The other thing is like thresholds in your house. If like you don't want a loose one that people can trip over, like, you know how like sometimes the wood on the bottom will like come loose and it's just like, woo, and then your toe hits it and you're done. Just set your house up so that it's as safe for you and easy for you to get around as possible. The last thing I wanted to mention is that there are these things called hip guards that, like, you know, the elderly women that are like all skin and bones at this point. It's like a spandex short that you can put on, and they have pads on the hips so that if they do fall, they have a little padding there to help prevent, or hopefully prevent, hip fractures. So that's another thing that people could look into if they have like a mother or a grandmother or even a father who's all skin and bones that might benefit from some padding on their bones. All right, guys. I wanted to get this video out not only to talk about Amber Lynn's falls, but to just give anybody some advice that has, you know, elderly parents, elderly grandparents who are kind of hitting this phase, and just like kind of throw some information out there at you guys to help keep them safe and help prevent anything detrimental from happening. If you guys have any questions about anything, feel free to leave them in the comments down below. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. If you're interested in hearing more from me, please subscribe and hit the notification bell so you get notified when I upload. I always leave my Twitter and Instagram link down below so you can follow me over there if you'd like. Thank you again for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. I wanted to give you your daily dose of share. Share!